Welcome to the Nativity Podcast, where we give listeners a behind-the-scenes look into the life of our active Catholic parish here in Burke, Virginia. How can we help you grow in your own faith? Listen to find out.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Nativity Podcast. I am your host, Father Ed Bresnahan, parochial vicar of Nativity Catholic Church in Burke, Virginia. With me as always,
your director of social media, Mary Castellano.
Oh my gosh, friends, I am so happy to be back. The last episode had a lot to do with our beautiful experience at the Eucharistic Congress.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I missed it. I wasn't part of it. I was so sad. I was on my own vacation, having my own time away, which was helpful. But really, what an amazing episode to be able to have kind of like a live episode and tune in to all of the amazing things that were happening. I think it's so funny because so many people from around the world, so many people from around our country were gathered. And so it was like all these world famous podcasts and all these things that were going on. They were all there, and like hidden in the folds of all of that was our little Nativity podcast. Like we were there too.
Definitely hidden among 60,000 other Catholics. We missed you, Father, but it was really fun. It was amazing. So if you haven't tuned into that, I definitely encourage you to do that.
Amen. But in addition to being grateful to be back, today we have an incredible episode.
We do.
We are so blessed. This is one of those moments. Today's ministry is something that we have been working on and like hoping for and planning for probably since the beginning.
Definitely since the beginning.
And when you think of Nativity, you think of some of our best ministries. You think of Starfish, right? You think of the amazing work that we do with like marriage enrichment. You think of some of our more liturgical things. You think of work camp. Think of youth ministry, thinking about, our rosaries, theater, and we've had all of them on board. But there is one thing that we do here in this parish that is pretty special compared to most other churches. It's one of those things that's not exactly like, it's so necessary in our world today, so needed, but I don't think a lot of people have a lot of awareness of what we do. And so we've been dying to get these two on our show for some time. And so we are really blessed today to be able to welcome Spread.
That's right. Our special religious development. We have two ministry leaders here. We have our coordinator, Joyce Kelly, who is the wife of Deacon Richard Kelly, who we've had on before.
We've had him before. We just never had his lovely wife on.
I know. We've been meeting. We're so excited to have you on, Joyce. Thank you so much for saying yes to this. And also with us today, we have one of our lead catechists for our Spread program, Karen. And so we're just going to give you guys a little bit of a background about what Spread is, Special Religious Development. Father, do you want to lead us in that?
Sure. So most people are familiar with general religious education. Sometimes you've heard it called CCD. And it's the way that our church has typically organized how to prepare young people from about pre-kindergarten all the way, sometimes even through high school, with catechism. Some people might call it Sunday school. Some people might call it CCD. Some people might call it RE. But it is usually 99% of the time around the country, it is a traditional class-based, maybe once a week program that teaches kids of all ages and prepares them for the sacraments, right? But not every student is able to go to a traditional classroom.
That's right.
It's amazing today in our schools how many people have what are called like IEPs or some kind of a learning disability or some kind of a program that requires some sort of a special accommodation. And typically, while schools might have resources, they might have specialists, they might be able to pull a student out of class, they might be able to have, certain resources that help our neurodiverse community to learn and to be able to, succeed in math or social skills or any number of things. Most of the time, our religious education programs don't have that ability. It's very tough to be able to take volunteer catechists and be able to train them as special education providers of special special education. So it is an amazing ministry that we have in our church that provides a needed resource for our learning disabled, neurodiverse, anybody who might be on the autism spectrum, anybody who might be who might have like Down syndrome or some sort of other issue that means that learning in a traditional environment is not possible.
Right.
So Spread in its essence is a once a week, or maybe once every other week. I think Joyce will be able to clarify that later. But it's a program where we have dedicated learning. You'll hear about shepherds, one-to-one ministries. You'll hear about accompaniment, being able to walk with them and help them learn about the love of God, oftentimes in a non-traditional education setting. And most especially, you're learning from people who have backgrounds in special education. And so Spread, Special Religious Development, is a way of helping to prepare our students, our children, for the sacraments, for a life of faith, when they wouldn't ordinarily be able to attend a traditional learning class. And so with all of that, there is so much history and background to this. And so I want to ask you, Joyce, when we talk about Spread and we talk about this beautiful ministry, where does it come from? Like, what's like the history behind it? And maybe in some small way, how is the program different from, say, your traditional religious education?
It came from France, and it was developed in a way that they used vivre, which is a movement that they had, and it's French symbolic method of religious instruction. And it also talks about joy is a sign of God's presence, and these kids are joyous when they're there. And the difference between Spread and CCD is, first of all, the children that come to us do not have to know how to read or even speak. Many of them have disabilities, that speaking or nonverbal. And we don't use an approach where we teach them information. And that's a major piece of the difference. We find a way to enrich their lives by stirring an awareness that God is in the midst of ordinary moments of their everyday life, and bringing forth an awareness of themselves as persons of dignity who God loves. So the part about the teaching, we use more of an approach where we have to bring about memories that we have about our growing up and becoming Catholic, or learning about our faith, that stirs almost an emotion, and we share it with one another and then with the children. So we don't use, books or writing on the board. It's all a lot stories. We use PowerPoints to try to tie the theme together. What would you say?
I think one of the most important things about the Spread program and any religious education for individuals with any kind of a disability was, especially since I started working with kids when they were younger, is that God is love. And that if they could come away with that understanding and knowing what it means to meet individuals that display that to them God is love and how they treat other people. They know from the way they've been treated by other people who did not accept them or haven't accepted them that, that's not very Christian. And that they often internalize it, oftentimes when there are some kids that are neurodiverse or multiply disabled, it's acting out behavior because, they can't communicate that they don't like being treated that way, but it may be more aggressiveness. But I think, coming to you with God is love and knowing how to treat other people as good Christians, good Catholics within the Christian faith, that's primary.
It's an important point. Father Bob always would say to the children, you are never alone. Jesus is always with you, and he loves you. And the kids have really picked up on that. And when I was saying before, we don't use the traditional approach like you would do in all religious education. We use an intuitive model. So again, the children, we bring pictures, objects, stories. We tell them, we use social stories, videos, and it really lets them see it, and not only using the reading part of it, but it's hearing, seeing, feeling. We dance, music, it's all part of it. And sometimes people say, are they really learning? It's amazing what these children walk away with. It really does. We also are concerned about the environment, the setting, the lighting, the noise level, how many people are in the room.
Yes, it's essential to have one-on-one with a group of kids that we have.
It's their special person. We call them as a volunteer, their shepherd. And we try to keep it the same person because these children don't have friends, many of them. They come here and they've established this relationship. She has one young man, we can't use names.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak. When he sees her, his eyes light up and he lets out this shrill. He knows one word when he sees Father Bob. Bob.
He knows the pastor's name.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Because if they're happy, they want you to be happy. And Father Bob stands out here when the kids come as if he's here. And the kids get so excited. And they're not used to that. They're not used to being welcomed that way. I don't want to say in the church, but many churches don't know how to accept them.
I think you just hit the nail on the head because I think that's it. I don't think it's always a spirit of malice that creates it. It's a spirit of insecurity or fear, right? A worry about how to say something right or how to not make a mistake when, say, loving or teaching. Or perhaps a frustration in not really approaching being able to communicate with somebody who doesn't communicate with you on a traditional level, right? On a way that, what do they call them? Neurotypical, I think is.
Yes.
So a neurotypical way of communicating with somebody, maybe perhaps like we're doing now, right? But instead, being able to rely on something that's almost a little more primal, something that's a little bit more like, the way that we communicate love, feelings, and expression, without using words.
Yeah. And I also love too that it's expressing truth. These feelings, these senses, using the senses to reveal truth. So I'm glad, Joyce, that you brought up that point that some people say, oh, well, are they really learning? Those are a lot of questions, but it's like, no, it's part of the church is using our senses. In hearing music, in, the sign of the peace, shake someone's hand, or, receiving Jesus Christ and, to eat and drink. And, that's through the senses. Yeah. So I love that approach that you are teaching them truth just without a book.
Yeah.
And people ask, okay, it came from France. It didn't come to Virginia. It went to the Archdiocese in Chicago.
Okay.
Interesting. And the people there just felt they needed a program for both children and adults to learn about their faith. So it started there. And we have a woman in our diocese, Dr. Nancy Emanuel, who is the coordinator of special needs programs. So I called to verify my facts. She was assigned her job in 2018. Spread came to Arlington in 1970.
Wow.
And there were 3 parishes that had it. And then there was, I guess, a very quiet period where we didn't have other churches opening up to the program. And then Nancy came on board, and now it was going to start. So now I asked her how many we have right now, and we have 14 programs in the parishes. We have 70 parishes, so we have a ways to go.
That's true.
We are aware of why it's needed.
I think part of that, with it starting in the 70s, 94-142 wasn't passed till 1973 when I graduated college. So I moved here straight to Virginia out of college. And the whole individual educational programs, IEPs, were getting developed, and we're learning how to do them with paper and pencil. We didn't have computers in the classroom.
And they still had institutions.
Oh, yeah, they still had institutions, right. In fact, my husband and I were going back to Notre Dame, and we were looking at an old map of South Bend, and they had an institution for the idiots. It was what it was labeled on the map.
Wow.
And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
but that was the mentality.
Yeah.
That was the mentality. Anybody with special needs was hidden.
And so just to sort of kind of be clear, this is where that need has stemmed from.
Yeah.
That there's a recognition of, first, not hiding away a group of people out of fear or resentment or, pride or whatever people do, but to educate them and to do it on a level, to do it in a way and in a manner that is going to be received well. It's going to be received, that's going to be received and understood. And I think, like you said, that's going to stem from experience, because experience is something that no one can avoid. Like, no matter where you are and your ability to learn or what it is that you learn, we all learn by experience.
Right.
That's the one kind of common unifying thing. Part of the reason that makes our faith so beautiful is that our faith is incarnational. We experience Christ.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just something that, like, we read a book that he bequeathed down from heaven or something like that. Or, it wasn't just sort of like any sort of, or out of the ordinary thing, but he became one of us. And so we experienced him. We walked with him. We received his miracles. We saw him feed 5,000 people. We saw him rise from the dead and continue to speak.
He was real.
He was real,
Yeah.
right? And because he was real, we experienced him.
And when you think back to, when you say 1970, spread was somewhere in this diocese, and then we come all the way forward to when Father Bob showed up here.
Yep.
That was 2015.
2015.
Now, at his other parish, All Saints, he had a spread program, a very strong one, and Nancy, Dr. Emmanuel, was his volunteer at his church running spread, and she still does it. So when he came here, he asked the sisters, he said, I really want to have a spread program. So Sister Donatella asked me, and I was like panic-stricken. And I called a good friend of mine who is in this parish, Tris Miserandino, and she and I went and visited the program that Nancy was doing, and she helped me to start it. And it was really amazing to see the difference when you looked at those children. So Trish is now one of the lead catechists, and we all have had special education training and experience of teaching, but you don't need it. Everybody doesn't have to have that.
That's something I wanted to touch on, kind of jumping off of Father's point of experience. So can you both just like give a brief explanation of your educational backgrounds?
I got my undergrad degree from Michigan State, and on my certificate it says elementary and special education for the physically handicapped and mentally retarded. That was before our terminologies changed.
Right.
I taught for 10 years in Fairfax County schools, then got married, and we started a family, so I was blessed to be able to be home for 13 years with my kids. The last 5 years of that, I ended up doing childcare and took a young man into my childcare with cerebral palsy that was nonverbal, and I worked through the Fairfax County Office for Children, getting some information and some like big gym mats and stuff to have at my house so I could have him there. And then I went back into the Fairfax County schools in 1996 and came back, and I did several different roles. I'd gone to grad school after that too, in early childhood special education. So I did different roles within Fairfax County, working with physically disabled kids, and then some positions got changed and eliminated and stuff, and I ended up doing assistive technology at the end with what's assistive technology services, and installing software and teaching parents and kids how to use the different communication devices as I was learning. I mean, I was doing this as I was learning how to do it. Oh, wait a minute, let me learn how to do this and I'll show you. And I'll make mistakes, but we'll do it slowly. Then the younger kids came in.
Learning on the fly?
Yeah, and then all these other younger teachers that grew up with computers and doing technology. It's like, okay, fine, you can go to the teachers who are really quick with it, and I'll take the teachers who are a little more apprehensive, and I'll sit with them after hours, and we'll make mistakes, and we'll slowly get through it. That's
when we started Spread, I had to find, and Trish helped me find volunteers. And when Karen showed up, I did not realize that we were going to have a number of children that are nonverbal. And they would come sometimes with the communication devices, sometimes they wouldn't bring them. Thank God Karen was there, because she understands the devices and can help the children and even the parents.
It's hard for families when they have a child that is nonverbal. And what we did within Fairfax County Schools was that we tried to teach the parents how to use a communication device. And I was very fortunate to work with some amazing speech therapists, and they're essential to working with communication devices. course, they had to go get extra training too because they don't have that many courses when you become a SLP at working with communication devices.
It's a major piece in addition
to
working with the
and
disabled.
it can be very expensive. Some of the students that are physically involved and nonverbal that have gone through and gotten eye gaze communication systems, was just for the eye gaze part of it is $10,000, and the communication device is on top of that, it's like $8,000.
Oh,
and then
goodness.
if they're in a wheelchair, and one of the students that I had to have his headrest replaced on his wheelchair, and it was $500 for a headpiece. So it's not being
It's so
disabled.
pricey.
They've got
Yeah.
a lot more
Insurance doesn't
expensive
always
beyond
cover it.
what anything insurance or the families can generally handle.
So you're dealing with people who are in a very difficult situation, but you're also dealing with a diverse group of people.
Yes.
Right. And so while some people are nonverbal, I imagine that some people are very verbal and very vocal.
We have some of those too.
So how do you balance all of those things together?
With my experience where I started teaching regular education in New York. And then we moved to Washington. And I decided to go back to school and do the special ed. So I went to UVA for my degree. And then, so I was fortunate that I had early childhood, and then I had and then special ed was early childhood, and I had vocational. They broke them out because this was later at that point. They were intellectual disability. They don't use the word MR. And I also had working with autism. So I covered a whole range at that point. Then I got a job at a program where the kids were medically fragile, and that was something I had never done before. And that's where you met a variety of disabilities, and many of these kids were in wheelchairs, didn't speak. 3 of them lived in nursing homes. And nothing had prepared me for what I was going to see and what the parents were going through. So, and we reach out to one another. Somebody else can help you or support you or show you this. And you're always taking classes too, but I don't think when special ed was passed, they ever anticipated it would reach this point.
No.
How expensive it is, so expensive.
Yeah.
So and now when they closed institutions, all those people and young adults came out, but I don't know if they're getting the services that they really need. So the state came up with the waiver system, but it's complicated. Parents, just to figure out the maze to get there. So these parents will never be free of worrying and making sure, are my children getting what they need?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned support, Joyce. So I've seen it just kind of in, as a third party observer and seeing through you and through your work, and even seeing the special masses that we have, the masses with the sacraments of initiation over the last few years. I can see just a glimpse of the support that the families do receive from our spread program for their children. But maybe can you just speak to that a little bit? How has this program that's meant to support their children, how does that help the parents?
One parent said to me, first of all, when they come and drop the children off, they're here for 2 hours. And we have children from outside the parish. There was a time when we said, yes, Father Bob said, we're going to take them until we maxed out. So now we're hoping other parishes will open up. But those parents who come from Arlington, they get together and they'll go for breakfast together, and they have a chance to share. We're planning, it's not been finalized yet, to have a parent support group to come and let them come in and share with them and bring in speakers, people who could talk to them. And it's not part of spread, but it's something that we found we really needed. And the Mass, we can talk at the end about what the Mass is. But these parents are so grateful. When you see their faces when they bring their children, first of all, they know the children are safe. Each child being with shepherd, the same person all the time, the shepherd gets to know the child. Almost like they can read what they are trying to say or what they need. That's where our program is very different. That connection, those relationships. And it's really made a difference in the kids' lives. As far as, even with the classes, it's again not your traditional teaching. We use a lot of symbols. It's very symbolic. When you break out what the spread program is, at the end there is what they call an agape. Because of COVID, we had to stop that for a period, and I don't know if we'll ever get back to it because of the strain that would put on worrying about allergies. But the agape really would represent the Mass, the meal at the end, and the kids, they really enjoyed it. So we try now to substitute it with something else for the symbolism. And what spread does, if you read the materials that come out, sometimes it's very technical, the language that they use from the group in Chicago. But the thing that spread fosters is friendship, community, presence, relationships, memories, trust, predictability, and knowing they are safe. Predictability, if a child has one shepherd and the shepherd doesn't show, what happened, Karen?
They know.
They know.
They know. They're looking for you.
Upset.
Yes. The students don't do well with having transitions from different people as instructors, as shepherds. They need to have the consistency of having the same person all the time. So you have that bond, you have that consistency. And the kids are looking forward to working with that individual within the larger group.
And this is typical, especially for folks who are on the spectrum, right?
Yes.
Because on the spectrum, dealing with change, dealing with ups and downs in terms of like sensory issues and like stimulation, those things are very hard. And I think being able to navigate something in an environment that you're familiar with, an environment that's comfortable.
Yeah.
So keeping things as regulated and keeping things as predictable makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, a beautiful way of, I tell people this about the church to begin with, because sometimes people will actually complain when they come to church because they're like, well, I come to church and it's the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great thing. It's a great thing because I know where I am in the Mass. Wherever I go in the world, there's a healthy predictability. I mean, I don't know what the homily is going to be, and I don't know necessarily what the readings are going to be, or maybe some of the specific prayers, but there's something that's healthy in being able to recognize, like, wait, I'm comfortable with this. I know where I am. And that's so true. I can totally imagine that would be something incredibly relatable for somebody on the spectrum. And so, yeah, having knowing that there's a friend that's waiting for you, knowing that there's a room we go to. This is the room we go to.
And you can't change it.
No. So
it's really
But what a beautiful way to incorporate that predictability and coordinate that communication into the life of the parish. I guess this is a little bit, I don't think this is terribly off topic, but I think this is helpful. What could we do to help integrate folks who are in the spread program into the parish at large, or maybe vice versa? How can we help our parish become a little bit more aware of what's going on with spread?
First of all, just having the children, they are so welcome to you.
Yeah.
Can't speak for other parishes.
Right.
They are welcome to you, and they know that. And Father Bob has really made it a point. So when the kids come, they know they're welcome. They're also teaching other people about who they are and having a disability. It's not the disability you look at, it's the child you look at. So that's educating them. It's also letting people know that the bishops have come out with 2 letters, pastoral letters about disabilities. And the first one just talks about how they should be treated. And then the other one deals with their availability for the sacraments. If a child, even though they do not speak, we have some on feeding tubes, they can have a little bitty piece of the host. They just have to be able, the consecrated host, to say, we have these adaptive kits. And it's either the bread, is this food or is it Jesus? And if they can tell you, they understand it's Jesus, they can make their communion. That is also showing other people. When it comes time to receive, sometimes they have to have the parent behind them when they go up. And our Eucharistic ministers are learning that. So there is it's an education on both sides. And then also that these children were created by God in his image and likeness. And they are loved just like any of us. So there's a lot of lessons that we learn that I never thought about before.
And it's so beautiful, Joyce. When you're talking about the children receiving the sacraments, I've had the privilege now, I think at least twice, of photographing their sacraments of initiation. So the first one, I think it was in 2019. Was that the first Holy Communion? Oh, of course. I can never forget it. It was so beautiful. And that was our first specifically spread mass First Holy Communion, and I can't remember how many children received, maybe 5 or 6, maybe?
Yes, and in fact, I've kept a spreadsheet every year showing how many have been receiving the sacraments. That was the first. I remember the one kid who just threw her hands up in the air. She was so excited. That people don't realize these children are truly excited to be receiving Jesus.
They really are, and it comes through. I mean, I can see it kind of through my camera lens, but I mean, just this past, I think the first year, what struck me was the parents' reaction. I don't think there was a dry eye in the congregation, and I'm trying to hold it together next to them, trying to capture them receiving Jesus for the first time, and you could just see the gratitude in the parents' eyes.
They never thought it was going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, wow, like their children, this is what I love to tell like my friends or other people that I work through in ministry who've never heard of spread, or who are kind of in that mindset of that kind of more old school mindset of they don't think these children can receive sacraments. And I tell them like, no, it is possible. Like the children do believe, they do want it. And what's so special about this program and all the work that you and your volunteers are doing is that these children probably would not receive the sacraments if you all didn't work with them,
Right.
or if some group of people didn't intentionally work with them. The other example was just a few months ago at the spread confirmation. There was one boy, I remember, because I have a series of photos and they're online and you can probably see them. One little boy in a wheelchair, a little blonde boy. I don't think we could say names, but he was like really happy. Like, I mean, they're all very happy, but like he was laughing with his parents and just like overjoyed, like almost comically overjoyed as the mass was beginning. And I noticed a distinct change as soon as because Father Bob got special permission to do the confirmation, because usually it's a bishop. And as soon as he went over to this little blonde boy in the wheelchair, the kid's face just like dropped, and I think he started weeping, and he's just like, you could tell that he knew what was happening. And I almost lost it. I was like, I have to hold it together. I have to hold it together.
Really.
And then the other little boy behind him, another little boy in a wheelchair. Oh, his face just beamed as he's maybe a foot below Father Bob, and he's just, his eyes looking up to him, and it was as if he was looking at Jesus himself. And it was just so powerful. And in that moment, I had no doubt that these children understood what they were receiving. No doubt at all.
Mary, there was something that I read. There's a program that we integrate bits and pieces of it. It was written by Rose Kennedy. And her daughter, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, really was the one who edited it. And the one thing I read was, these children are not looking, and she was talking about her own daughter, are not looking for pity. They are seeking to be part of their church community and enjoy their full baptismal rights as a member of the church. And that really hit me. How many people think of that? They just think and see the disability, and not that these children have the same rights as you and me. So we have a long way to go, but we're on the right path, I think.
Yeah. And I think as you get more and more people who are aware, you get a lot more people who want to see how they can help. So actually, I'd really love, because I've met a bunch of them, but I'd love to hear your take on your volunteers, on your shepherds. Like, what are the kinds of people that show up and become a shepherd? And like, what has it been? What does it mean for you having them come back year after year?
And this year, because I was looking at the numbers, last year we had, number-wise, we had 23 children. We started with 12 the first year, and we had 30-something volunteers.
Wow.
And of those 30, I would say 90% of them are repeat, coming back each year. Because I'll always tell them, if you feel burned out, you're not going to be good in the program. There are other things you could do. They are just so attached to their one special person. They come back. And they come with a variety of backgrounds. I mean, when Karen came, it was amazing with the communication devices. And then we have a nurse who is not here as a nurse, but it's great knowing she is there. We have former teachers. We have some who are aides working in the schools. Trying to think of some of the others. And people who are not teachers. I have one mother who has a daughter with Down syndrome. In fact, she brings her daughter as a volunteer because she's older. We did have teenagers, which the teenagers just bring life into these kids. But the hard thing is they have to be able to make the commitment. And because of their sports programs, you don't want to, hold them from being in that. But the teenagers were wonderful with the kids. At one point, we had a girl was becoming a music therapist. She would come. Because music is so important.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, who was some? Can you think of any of the others?
I'm thinking of some of the young men that,
Oh, God, yes.
one in particular, that's discerning what his career is going to be.
Amazing.
And he's amazing.
And then we
so
have
good with-
a man who also plays Santa Claus every year for the parish, and he's older and he has a beard, and his little buddy, his eyes light up when he sees him. This boy came here from another parish where he was made to feel very uncomfortable, and the parents couldn't get him to go back to church. I don't know really what went on, but they brought him here. He made it into the narthex, and he sat down. They couldn't get him to go in anymore. So a couple of Sundays, a woman came in, and she was his OT in the public schools. She said,
wow.
"What are you doing here? Come on into church." And he started the first year. He's been every year to our spread program.
Wow.
So the volunteers are the backbone of the program.
Yeah.
And
So true.
you could always use more volunteers, I'm sure, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. And I just got 3 right now that I'm meeting with for the new year coming up. So you like to talk to them. You want to know, how do they look at, working with these children? What do they think about? But so far we've been really lucky with the people that we've had come up.
For sure.
Yeah, I say that because we want to avoid the situation like we've done in the past,
Yeah.
where we want to compliment our amazing volunteers and ministry leaders, but we don't want people to think that there's no room for growth.
Right.
So we always want to, give credit where credit is due, but always keep that door open for anybody who's listening to this. And if you're like, hey, you know what? I think that's actually something that's really special on my heart. I would love to get involved. Yes, I am looking for something that I want to commit to. I love working with children, or I'm more interested in learning how to work with children or young people with, different needs. Talk to Joyce and Karen. If you see them at Mass, please go up and approach them. But you guys could always reach out to us. You could always reach out to Nativity. You could call our parish office. How can I get more involved?
The religious ed office.
The religious ed office.
sure.
And I think Spotify has a feature now where you can comment. So you can leave a comment, and we'll get back to you if you're interested in learning more about how to volunteer. Because there is a lot more, I'm sure, a lot more information about how to be a volunteer and all the things that go into that. But we could always kind of continue that conversation offline. But one thing I definitely want to ask before we kind of close up here, speaking of the sacraments and the Mass and just kind of helping these children, because I mean, really the point that we're trying to do here is, yes, we want children to feel welcome. We want them to know that they're loved, but ultimately we want to lead them to Jesus. We want to make the Mass accessible and for them. So maybe the two of you could talk about how are we planning on doing that here at Nativity very soon.
Well, and we're really excited about this. Father Bob had a parishioner meet with him because she had 3 boys, and she never could feel that her boys could come to church here and feel welcome because they were with disabilities where they made noises or maybe sounds or were not comfortable, get up and walk around. And she met with him, and she just said, I really want to know if I could talk to you and maybe you would let us do something which really the church needs, and that's called the sensory Mass. So she's been working with Father Bob and with Allison, and then they asked me to come in a bit. So we're starting something here the second Sunday of every month, starting in August at the 1 o'clock Mass.
The 1 o'clock Mass.
And it's a sensory Mass. And it's There'll be a flyer in the bulletin, and also they've been advertising on the website. And what it does is it makes the Mass accessible to all. It's not just for people with disabilities. It's even for older people who can't take a lot of loud noise or too much loud music, although I love music. So it'll have very quiet music. The priest will have a shorter homily. The prayers are going to be the prayers that the children know, because they're going to have a book with each part of the Mass printed with pictures, so they're going to be able to follow along. Again, predictability. They know what's coming. When they come into the back of the church, we'll have greeters, and we have gotten together and purchased regulation materials to help the children if they need to be, just to stay calm. We'll have a they have the Mass in this the center church chapel. They're going to have the Father Reedy room as the overflow room, or a room where maybe they would be more comfortable because it's quieter. And we're also going to have another room that they're going to call the
calming area?
Yes, thank you, Mary. The calming area. That's not to attend Mass in there, but sometimes you'll find the kids get agitated or even change, or they're not comfortable. We'll have in there manipulatives that will help them to get calm again and then come back out.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. So these sensory items that Joyce is talking about is they look like toys, but they are tools. That's something that Tracy and I talked about.
That's a really
lot.
clear distinction.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think in the flyers, she did a very good job of labeling like these sensory regular, these items. They are tools. So some of them are handheld. They're whether they're fuzzy or they're squishy. It could be something that a child can just hold, just to kind of have some sort of movement, something to do with their hands while they are participating in Mass. It's not to distract them. It's to help their mind and body focus on what's going on. And then another example is it's like a little seat that someone can sit on, and it just kind of, it's a little rocker, or it's something that allows them to move more easily in their seat so that they can channel that little extra energy into their hips or whatever, so that they can focus. So I think this is really key.
You've really learned this. This is
And
the noise canceling tools, which is another thing. Sometimes
That's
you
such a
see them
big-
with the headphones. It's too much. It's too stimulating. They can't
Even
handle it.
neurotypical people will oftentimes struggle with, hearing, loud noises, like rock concert type things and music that's just a little too loud.
When Father Bresnahan likes to crush Doritos when we're prepping for a podcast.
Throwing me under the bus, but it's true. It's
one
true.
of those,
I love snacking, and so sometimes before our podcast, I'll snack. And so the downside, of course, is that these microphones are super sensitive, and they pick up every crunch. And like normally, my crunching isn't particularly loud, but my crunching amplified by the microphone goes right into her ear, and it tickles the back of your head, and it's just it's kind of reverse ASMR or
He
whatever.
likes to make fun of me, as we're like, that's his way of picking on me. So I understand, as a neurotypical person, I understand how bothersome that can be. So I have
Can't
sympathy.
imagine what it's going to be for somebody who desperately needs the predictability when it comes to noise, and desperately needs that.
There is also in the Mass booklet, which they'll leave here, they can't take them,
Right.
a check-off sheet. Both sides of it has each part of the Mass, and with a marshable pen. So as they go through the Mass, if they need that predictability to show we've done this, we're at this point, they can check off each one. So I think that the tools will help them. Not everyone needs this. Some do, some don't. So, but we'll learn. We're still in the learning stage of how we're going to be doing this.
Yeah.
But it's very exciting. There is an organization that highly recommends that this is the National Catholic Partnership on Disabilities is a website. In fact, our bishop is, I think, the executive director.
Yeah, he's pretty up there.
He is so in favor of all of this. And this website actually will lay out what the Mass should be like. So you don't even have to think about it. It's all there.
And it feels like it really comes down to a basic thought, is that if you're thinking about how to serve a particular group of people and how to say, well, what is it that you need to be successful? Well, understanding that like a place that's welcoming, a place that, provides a situation that's helpful, or places and resources that help bring things back to ordinary. I don't know what ordinary would be. That those things, coupled with a non-judgmental attitude, right? And I always feel so bad. I almost I couldn't find the family afterwards, but I saw the family. I couldn't find the perpetrator afterwards. But very often you'll get situations where children are kind of unruly at church. Maybe they get the wiggles or something like that, and it disrupts the peace of some of the people around them, and they feel sort of like put out, and so they have to tell the family to take better care of their kid or something like that. And it's always heartbreaking to me, because instead of offering assistance, or instead of offering a knowing and an understanding, there's some sort of, oh, you've inconvenienced me at mass.
But see, they can say it, and think of the child who's having this sensory issue where they can't express it.
Exactly.
So they do it through their actions.
Exactly.
And remember, Father, we have to keep saying that everyone is entitled to the full baptismal rights as members of the church.
Exactly. And so I think being able to create an environment that says, look, I don't know what you've experienced at church before. I don't know if you've had a negative experience like the one I just described. You are welcome in this moment. You will always be welcome in this moment. Like Father Bob said, you're never alone.
Yeah.
You're never alone. Jesus is with you, and we'd like to be there with you as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. This is something that Allison and I have talked about over the last month, of how do we tell what's the best way to invite the parish to this Mass. It's exactly that. The whole parish is invited to this sensory Mass, but just be aware that we have these changes, and to please, approach it with a non-judgmental attitude. And I just want to reiterate what Joyce had said earlier. So the church will take place as our regular masses do in the main sanctuary. We will still have the Father Reedy room for overflow space, and a child could participate in the Mass there 100%. If that's a better, smaller environment for them, we'll have regulation tools there that they can use and then put kind of back after the Mass. And then we will have a separate space in the church conference room. So it's kind of where we have donuts in like that area near the narthex. That'll be our kind of regulation room, our quiet space, where the intention is if a child needs to go there just to kind of self-regulate for just a few minutes and then rejoin the Mass. Yeah. So that's the whole purpose, is to help the individual enter better into the sacrament.
Can I bring out one other thing?
Please.
You asked
Sure.
earlier, how can we get them more involved?
Exactly.
We have altar service that have disabilities. When we have Corpus Christi, the children on spread are out there giving out water to the people who are processing. Any way that we can have these children participate and let them be visible.
Yes.
They, again, are part of the community. And Father Bob has been great. I have 2 kids right now who want to be altar service.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about that. So
Wonderful.
they're so proud to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think one other thing, especially with the Mass and with this, with what you just mentioned, is that this isn't just a one-time moment. This isn't like hey, we did this one sensory Mass. Like those kids, I've been at this parish now for 4 years, and those wonderful kids have been out at every one of our Corpus Christi celebrations. So they are given, they're there. And we've got a number of altar servers with disabilities, and they are amazing. And watching, I think, like you said, I think watching them is such an inspiration for us. But I love watching how our other altar servers take care of them, right? It's not one of those, hey, how come you couldn't remember the water or anything like that? It's like, no, watching them rise to the occasion and grow and be big brothers and big sisters to them is really a
And
really
they make
powerful
mistakes.
thing.
We all do, and we learn
Sure.
from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we made a mistake at the beginning of the podcast. So
Father, Mary, anytime you two would like to be volunteers, we'd love to have
we'd
you.
love to. We'd love to. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to being able to celebrate one of the sensory masses. So it's going to be once a month, forever, as far as we're able to. That the second second Sunday of every month, 1 o'clock mass is going to be a sensory mass.
And the very first one is going to take place on Sunday, August 11th at 1 p.m. So again, everyone is invited. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be really beautiful. Well, friends, this has been an absolute joy, And so I think maybe just to sort of tie things up, normally we ask you guys, we ask our group how to volunteer, but I think there's 3 ways to volunteer. I think the first way you can volunteer is by reaching out to, if you're a member of our parish, by reaching out to us and seeing if there's a place, if there's a need to become a shepherd or to become in some way, shape, or form. If you're not from our parish, don't be afraid to contact your pastor. Don't be afraid to contact your church to see if they might be able to start a spread program, because we would like to spread, dare I say. So I think that's one way to volunteer, is obviously getting involved in the program itself. But I think a second way to do it is to be aware in your role in the church, in your place in the church, wherever you are. If you are casual parishioner in row number 3 of the back center by the votive candles, if that's you, or if you are, I don't know, chairman of the finance council and head of the Knights of Columbus, and your kids are all altar servers and your wife is the Lady Sodality director, I don't know, whatever the case is, no matter how involved you are in the church, to recognize that people with special needs are in your parish. People with special needs are members of your parish. Being sensitive to that, and recognizing that, people who may have struggles, may have disabilities, may have difficulty, doesn't mean that, I love what you said earlier, doesn't mean that they need pity, but they do need you to love them. So make your parishes, and make our parish, a welcoming place, a place where somebody can feel immediately that they're here and they're going to meet Jesus.
And if anyone who's listening to this, not from here or even from here, and they feel their parish should have a spread, contact Dr. Nancy Emanuel at the diocesan office and start with her, and she'll show you how to do it. And the other thing is pray.
That was my third one. I love that.
Sorry.
No, that's so good.
I stole your thunder.
No, you're perfect. It means our brains are in sync. It means that we're all in the same spot. No, absolutely. And even if you're not in that situation, maybe you are not able to get to church regularly, or maybe wherever you are, pray. Pray. We're a family, and know that these young people are praying for you as well.
Yeah. There's a seat for everyone at the table. And I think that's one of the ways that we're really approaching, I don't want to say marketing and advertising, but basically sharing this new opportunity with the parish is reminding them that everyone has a place here. So.
Amen. Mary, do you have any shout outs?
Oh, well, she wasn't able to be with us here today for this recording, but I know you talked about her earlier. But shout out to Trisma Sarandino for all of her work working with you, Joyce and Karen, and really all of your spread volunteers who have put in, how's it been, 5 years at this point?
Going into 6.
Going into 6. That's huge.
Yeah, an amazing gift. You are both amazing gifts to our parish. We love you, and we're grateful for you. Can't wait to see.
Can I say the sisters, because they just are amazing, and they just say, do it, and for the bar.
Which is so funny, because Joyce, if you haven't gotten the understanding from our wonderful conversation, Joyce is a hard one to say no to. Joyce will ask people to do stuff, and you feel compelled. It's a beautiful thing. So when the sisters are like, go and do it, it feels like such an affirming thing. You love it. So we're grateful for you, ladies. Thank you so much for the time, for the opportunity to be able to interview you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, if you're listening to us, no matter where you are, please remember, like and subscribe is the best way that you're able to. But we tell people that the number one way to get a hold of our podcast, or to find us and to share this message, is by word of mouth. So tell your family and friends, introduce us to a new group of people. And especially if you know anybody who has parents, kids, family members, friends who are dealing with any kind of a disability, I hope that this is an uplifting and a powerful message for you to know how loved you are, to know how much we care about you, and to know that there are beautiful resources in the church that that are here specifically for you in helping you to come to know that God is love.
Amen.
And with that, we love you guys and have an absolutely lovely day.
Thank you.